Welcome, everybody. Welcome to today's Spark Festival event. I'm here with Melissa and Siobhan. Melissa from the Founder 10X program at Universities of New South Wales, and myself and Siobhan from the committee of the Sydney Angels. Siobhan sort of is our ops manager. She runs everything, and I'm part of the committee. So we get together every Friday and talk about how we're going to run Sydney Angels as an organisation. It's a not-for-profit, so we volunteer our time, and we've been running for about 13 years now. A couple of housekeeping things, folks. What we're going to do is we've got about 28 people, 29 people now. We do have a book running on how many people are coming. At the moment, I'm on the losing end of that, and Melissa's on the winning end. But as we go through, I'm hoping we're going to get a few more people come over the line in the last few minutes. In the meantime, what I'd like to do is I'd like just to do a poll. I've got a poll here. I'm just going to launch this poll. This was, oh, poll just ended. That was interesting.
I can see the poll.
Oh, okay. Oh, there's 3 questions. Oh, okay. There we go. So everybody could just do that. It launched before I had the chance to launch the poll. Don't know why it did that. So if folks would just answer where they're from and what their interest is today, that just gives us an idea as to what our audience is like. It's great for the feedback. Looks like we've got 22 people have answered out of 31, 23. Oh, some people deciding who they are. We're up to 32 participants. Oh, actually, that does include us 3. So I'm still not quite on a winning streak here.
Good news, Greg. No one's in the wrong meeting. Woo.
Oh, great. Yeah, thank you for that one. I forgot to ask that question. Great. So we're all in the right place. No one's dropped off. Jolly good. Okay, we got 25 answered, so including us 3, we should have 29. So we're waiting for 4 more folks. Maybe a couple of people have just switched on and not seen the poll on their screen. That's quite possible. Look at that. It's switched down. Okay, it looks like that's what we're getting. It looks like we're getting that. I'm going to end the poll there. Terrific. Thanks, everybody. Happy to share the results. There you go. You can see what the results are of the poll. Oh, someone said there wasn't an option. They picked curious. Okay. I'll just pop that down there. I'll stop sharing the poll. I will share the results there. Oh no, I thought that. Terrific. Okay, so we got just under an hour today, folks. I'm going to start, and basically, I'm just going to sort of give you an idea of basically what we look for as angels, and I give you an idea a bit of our organisation, our process as well. I've got some intro slides, and then I've got. Oh, it's interesting. Pop back up. I've got some intro slides, and then I've got just 10 slides. Which is actually what we asked for as well in a presentation when you're pitching for money to the angels. So I'm going to get that started. Oh, if you've got a question, could you please pop it in the chat, and I'll just pause every now and again, and Siobhan's just going to see if there's some common themes or anything that we can cover as far as answering questions go. So we're trying to make this session interactive. Pop your question in the chat anytime you want. I'm happy to stop and answer those questions because I know that sometimes they're quite specific to the topic I'm on. Okay, so let me just give you a little bit of an idea about the angels. There's a few busy slides in here. Unfortunately, the fellow who prepares our slides has a detail element to him. So the overview of this slide is basically, we've been going for about 13 years now. And we've got a sort of well-refined process for taking companies in the top and producing invested companies out the bottom. We have some partners. In the days of where we used to have these things face-to-face and get to see each other and share a drink, we would do it at the PwC offices. It's quite a nice setting. We usually serve some hors d'oeuvres as well. Griffith Hack are great. They provide some IP support for us. So any organisation that comes on with a great idea, they'll have a sort of a session that helps them to understand what is the IP that they should be looking at. And Zacata, we often used to hold our weekly committee meetings there. Again, another busy slide, but really all this says is we have a sidecar fund. So when you come along to the Sydney Angels, and this is quite unique actually to Angels across Australia, we have a sidecar fund. We're team-based investing as a team or as a syndicate, and then the sidecar fund matches whatever we invest. So if we raise 150,000, the sidecar fund will match that. So if you're coming in for 250 or 500,000, from the members you'll need 250 if you're after 500, and the sidecar fund will match that. So it actually increases the amount that we can invest in companies. This talks about Sidecar Fund 1. We are just coming towards the end of Sidecar Fund 2. We've only got 12 months to run on that. Then we'll be into Sidecar Fund 3. We've done about, I think, 80 investments there since started. Some have been successful, some of them haven't. We've had a few IPOs and a few die-off and a few that are still going, which is great. Our investment, about 32 million to date. We've got roughly 13 times money at the moment. There it is, 78 startups, which has created about 3,500 jobs from last count. We've got 107 members, 78 are regular investors as well. And here's sort of the total amount. I won't go into that. Anyone's happy who would like this presentation, I'm happy to share it with you. So typically a startup that comes to us is looking to raise after their friends and family round, and an investment sort of between, sort of 200 to 300K is what we provide. And often we invest in a group of co-investors. So it's never usually just the angels. Often if a round is $1 million, we might raise 500 and you might try to find 500 from others. So this year looks at the breakdown of that. You can see co-investors in green, our sidecar fund there, and also our members. And remember as well, we also have follow-on rounds as well. So some companies come back to us 2, 3, 4 times, and often the syndicate reinvests as well if the company is producing good results. Here are some of the results we've had of companies that have gone on to raise over $2 million. $2 million. 8 of them have raised over $20 million. So we've got a reasonably good track record there, and you can see some of the names there over the period of time. Clarity, I think, and Atomo just IPO'd as well. So these are the exits that we've had so far in the time we've been running. Quite successful exits there. So some good returns for investors, and that's a big thing that investors are looking for, as I'm sure you'd see is fairly obvious. We got a fairly simple cycle. We get it's 6 weeks. We get about 40 applications. 6 of those were the committee choose that we review each week. We try and make this a fairly quick process. We give feedback immediately. So if you put yours in 1 week, you should get a response in the next week as to if you haven't been successful. If you are still on the list and to the end of that cycle, you'll know within 6 weeks. We then have a deal screening meeting, which is typically the committee plus a few core members. And we take that from 6 presentations, they all present on Zoom at the moment, down to 3, and those go through to the members meeting. From the members meeting, typically you'll form a syndicate, I would say, and about 1 in 3 get invested of that. So we usually do 6 to new investments per year. That's probably 1 every 2 or 3 months. Whoops. This is sort of some statistics about where we've been over the years, the number of companies that have come in, the number of companies we've invested in, investments, the number of pitches we've had, and follow-ons as well as in there. As I said, you can look at this more detail if I send it over to you. This slide's too busy. All I'm going to say is typically we look for organisations that have got either a working prototype or product market fit. Remember that typically angel investors are all about seeing some scale. So we want to see that you've proved that you've got a few customers, that you've got a bit of product fit there, and that we can then grow that customer base for you and start to see a return as you scale your idea. And that's sort of the key piece there. Okay, so here's sort of the sort of key piece of what I'll be talking about today. And okay, we're at 12 minutes at the moment. Is there any questions at the moment? No? Good. Oh, one question. Will he send out a copy of the presentation? Yes, you're absolutely happy to have this. Okay, so like I said, I've got 10 slides, and hopefully I'm not going to do it in 10 minutes. I'm going to take a little longer because I'm not pitching for money. So keep it to a high level. Enthusiasm is really, really important, because when we're doing our syndicate process, so after the pitch happens, we form a syndicate off of the back end. I run those meetings. I ask people who would like to know more about this company. So it's a lot to do with the founder, because the founder is the one that's on display there. So the enthusiasm is a really important piece when you're pitching for money. Remember, most of what you say will be forgotten. So you really want to make sure that you have 3 or 4 messages that are quite key. And as I said earlier, this is about knowing your audience. The 3 things that they really want to know is, they want to know, how much do you want? What are you going to do with it? And when am I going to get it back? They're kind of the 3 key things that you really need to be answering. So if you can make sure that you show them a pie chart of how you're spending the money, well, how much you want's obvious, and really show how in a marketing or a sales plan you're planning on growing and scaling the company. This is a key piece. And I'm focusing on that particularly because I find it's often lacking. This is something I don't see enough, is someone who's thought out how it is that they're going to scale their company. And I think that's really important. So in the slides, what do you want to say? Well, for the very first thing you really want to talk about is, here's the problem we're solving. And why is that important? It's important because people will take a position on whether or not that's actually a problem. So you need to make sure that you show it is a problem, right? It's all good and well saying, oh, there's a problem here. It's another thing demonstrating that there is a problem that needs solving. And the pain of the problem, the higher the pain, the more money people are prepared to pay to make that pain go away. And if you can look at it from a market size perspective, people are getting very sophisticated with this, with SAMs and TAMs and SIMs and SOMs. That's useful, but explain what that means, because again, think of your audience. Not everybody in the audience knows all of the acronyms about it. A little litmus test I use, we've got a process where between the 6 companies down to the 3 companies, where we put a mentor in charge in that 2-week process, 2-week time scale, to help them, the companies, improve their pitch from the deal screening meeting through to the members meeting. And we help you focus down on these things. So that, I think, is useful to know, that you'll have some guidance in being able to make your pitch more towards the angels and what they're looking for. So then what is your solution? This is the next, really the key piece. Why is yours better? What's your secret sauce, and what are they going to benefit? Because of course, again, the benefit is all about the financial return that they're going to get as an organization. And also then that you're going to get, and it helps you to understand what is the price of your product compared to the return they're going to get. So it helps you with positioning. And the other thing to remember that I always say, and I actually got this from Steve Jobs, he used this to design a lot of his products. You've lived this for a long time by the time you get there, right? If you're old enough and you have a 15-year-old, explain it to your 15-year-old, because you wouldn't believe the number of people at the end of the meeting, when we're all discussing it, people who say, I don't understand what they're selling. So understanding what's being sold and a clear business model about how you say it's really key. So being able to explain things in simple terms is really, really important. I notice we haven't got any questions in the chat, so I'll move on. Who are your target customers? So there's usually going to be probably 3 levels. There's going to be your easy targets, then your medium targets, then your hard targets. The easy ones are the people the 3% of the marketplace that had the problem, now they're looking for a solution. The medium targets are going to be that next 60, which is split into 2, which is usually the people who have the problem, but they don't know that there's solutions out there, or they don't know that they have the problem, and therefore they don't know there's solutions out there. So there's a big bracket there because you're obviously often you have new technology, so that requires a bit of education as well. How many? This is good. Quantification is really good in your presentation. How many of them, what will they pay, segment the market. So at the end, what you can do is you can show in a sales cycle, I can close this much over this period of time. This is how much money I'll bring in. And this is what the business model is that supports that. Really key. Competition. Obviously, there's choice out there in the marketplace. And this comes again to your secret sauce. who's out there. You know, you can always, there's quadrants that are really helpful because it helps define why you're special and in what, you know, hey, it gives you the opportunity to put you in that top right-hand corner through whatever metrics you choose. And it's up to us to ascertain whether they're important in the marketplace. But it's worth knowing your solution and what is out there. Usually you've seen it because you've solved, you know the problem in the marketplace, and therefore you're looking to solve something that no one else has solved, and therefore you know you're a secret sauce. But it's useful to get a little bit of customer verification of that, because that's how you know. It's only through customer verification of having looked at the competitors to be able to say, yeah, these guys are different, and here's why they're different, and here's why we chose them. Your team, another really key piece. These are the people that will propel you through to success. So a balanced team is useful. Plenty of experience is useful, but also the ability to be young and dynamic as well. You can demonstrate this as well by understanding the problem and the depth. That shows the experience that you've got in having solved this problem. Usually a good story is how you came together and how you started the company is something that's important, and Melissa's going to go into that a little bit as well. So what have you achieved as well today? Is there any standout things? We don't need everyone's biography, 2 or 3 bullet points as to what everyone's achieved and what skills they bring to the table so we can see that balance that I was talking about. Plans. So we want to understand, and this is a real process to show you've thought about it. We're not going to hold you to this because no one can see the future. Although we are now at 39 participants, which equals 37, Melissa. So we're right in the middle of you and me. I think you said 36 and I said 38. So it's a tie at the moment. So short-term and long-term plans, like I said, no one has a crystal ball. This process is just about showing you've thought about it. You've taken a whole lot of data you've got now, you've projected it forward. 3-year to 5-year plans, you might as well do it on a napkin for what it's worth. It isn't worth anything other than the mental process of thinking about it to say, I've thought about my pipeline. Here are the things that are going to block me. Here's my sales cycle. Here's some of the barriers. Here's my personas I'm trying to sell to. So these are really key to show you've thought about it. And also, will you need further rounds of funding? And what is that opportunity? Like I said, one of the key questions was, when am I getting it back? Just showing you've thought about it, which is things like a similar company that I sold recently for $250 million, or this company IPO'd at this valuation. They're sort of useful things. Again, it just shows you've thought about the future and where it is that you're going. How much you require? I think that's sort of fairly obvious. And what are you going to do with it? Again, this is quite key, because one of the things, and don't make this mistake, please, is to say, yep, we got all this funding coming in. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to pay ourselves a whole bunch of money. That's the last thing investors want to hear. They want to know how you're going to use the money to scale the business, remember. How you're going to use it to bring in more customers, to make more customers happy, to build the product out better. What is all the marketing you're going to do that's going to support that sales plan that you just showed us a few slides ago? And then again, we're also not looking for you to break even. Because if you're breaking even or making a profit, it means you're not investing the money in the future growth of the company. We're not expecting a return in 1 or 2 years. In fact, I came on board expecting a return in the companies I invested in 3 to 5 years. But it actually turns out it's more 7 to 10. Now, I'm happy about that because it means these companies are investing more money in growing their business. They're taking on more rounds of funding. Sure, I'm getting a little diluted if I'm not involved in further rounds. But at the same time, I'm seeing this investment on paper, granted, grow. And that's what people are after. They're after growth. They're not after breaking even, right? I put that in there just as a little red herring. Okay, financials. This is a good thing to come. Again, this is about an exercise to show you've thought about it because it shows your business model. When you're projecting things financially, you understand what your costs are. When you understand what your costs are and your business model are, you can understand actually how much cash flow you're going to generate, if you're going to generate, or how much you're going to burn. It's usually going to be in the burn category. And typically we ask, once we've done an investment, I ask the entrepreneurs for a small update, which I tailor for them and say, here's the 5 things I want to know. I want to know what your CAC was, cost of acquisition of a customer. I want to know what your lifetime value is. And this is month by month. I want to know how much additional MRR you brought on this month. How much did you grow? How many new customers did you bring on? What was your cash burn? I.e., I am spending $20,000 a month on cash, but of course my revenue offsets that. I've got 5 at the moment. So my cash burn is $15,000 per month. This is important to know because what does that give me? That gives me the runway on the investment we just made. So I know when you're likely to be looking for some more money. So I'm looking for some improvement over that period of time to show that you guys have grown as a business. You've shown additional customers, additional revenue, all these great things that support it. And you've overcome challenges as well as an organization. Okay, the structure of the deal. So we need to understand what your cap table looks like. And we need to understand what percentage you're giving away of the organization for that, and what does the pre-money and the post-money valuation look like, and the percentage and who owns what. Now, valuation is a really difficult one, and I'm not going to cover that in this. There's just a little thing there, which is about pre-money valuation. But we have other presentations, and I believe, Siobhan, can you give me a thumbs up if Adrian's running the How to Evaluate Startup?
He'll be doing that on the 28th.
Great. So on the 28th, Adrian Bunter, who in this industry is a very smart man. We're lucky enough to have him as part of the Angels. He's very, very good at what he does. And he gives you 4 or 5 methods on how to value a startup, right? I've noticed valuations have raised over the last few years, and there's nothing wrong with that either. It's about we're about being fair. So let me give you an example of what I mean by that. We had an organization come to us with a valuation that we thought was too low. So we raised it, and he raised all the money he wanted, but it was fair for him. We've also had some where we think it's too high, so we try and negotiate down. But we're not here just trying to hammer down and get the best price. It's all about a fair valuation for organizations. And I think that when we did that with the company about 2 years ago now, I was in that investment. I thought it was fair that he got a high valuation as well for what he'd done to date and what he was planning on doing. Okay, so this is my last slide. That'll give us a little bit of time for questions if there are any. High-level summary. Basically, remember what I said at the beginning, what are the 3 key points you want people to leave with, right? You want them to know more. So you want to leave open-ended questions. Don't try and answer everything in your presentation. It's just not going to be possible. We have the due diligence process for that. And, that goes into, typically 4 to 6 weeks, maybe a couple of months, where we look at the organization and we work with you to pull it down and pull it apart and put it all back together again. And there's a lot of advice provided there as well. It's one of the things about Angels is that truly with Sydney Angels, I believe we are the smart money. And, I often get requests, sales and marketing tends to be my focus. And I often get requests, can I be part of the advisory board moving forward? And, often because you want to look after your investment, you'll often give up free time to do that as well. So you'll find that a lot of the members in Sydney Angels will be willing to do that. Some won't, but, pick and choose the ones that offer that and take it up. It's very valuable. Their time is very valuable, and they can offer some great things. So like I said, 3 key points. Know that you want them to know more. And part of that is understanding your audience is a key piece. And this gets the conversation started. And of course, we always have 10 minutes of questions at the end of our sessions as well. That'll give you the opportunity to answer anything that isn't covered in your slide presentation.
Greg,
so,
sorry, Greg, we have a
yeah,
question.
Go ahead. I was just going to say questions.
From L. L, did you want to ask your question?
That's right. I've got it here.
Okay.
Do any pitches ask for sweat equity? Do any pitches ask for sweat equity? No, typically not. We're not really in the game of sweat equity. We are an angel investment group, so we will be putting money into the company rather than equity for time. Once we have put money into the company, we like to look after that investment if we have the opportunity. Some people don't, like I said, some people do. So I've never heard someone ask for sweat equity, to be honest. As you mentioned, the next event we'll discuss valuation was, however, do you have a rough guide or basic formula for a startup generating revenue? It's a complex question. I really don't want to go into it, to be quite honest, because there isn't a rule of thumb for this. It depends on the market you're in. It depends on the product you're selling. It depends on what the market sentiment is at that time sometimes. There's too many I think you'll see what I mean. I don't want to mislead you or just give you my opinion, because I don't honestly, personally, even though I've been doing this for 5 years, I personally don't think I'm qualified to be able to give you a rough guide. And that's just my hand on heart opinion. Do we raise on a safe note? Yes, we do raise on a safe note sometimes. It's not our preferred option, but that all comes down to the negotiation. It has been done in the past, and I'm sure it'll be done in the future. I'm finding more and more there are people come with safe notes. We recently did a C note as well. That happens as well. Okay, well that's about time for me. Thanks for those questions, guys. I'm a couple of minutes early, which is great. Gives Melissa plenty of breathing room. So I'll thank you very much. If you've got any other further questions, pop them in the chat, and maybe we'll get a chance at the end to answer them. Otherwise, I wish you guys all the best in your search for raising money, and I hope you come and see us. Put in an application. It's a 2-page online application. Cheers. Melissa, over to you. Now, I don't need to unshare, do I? You can just take that over.
Yeah, that's fine. You're not leaving me though, are you?
No, definitely not leaving. I'm hanging around. Sorry, I'm here to stay.
Sounded like a goodbye and farewell. Hey, welcome everyone, and thanks very much, Greg, for running through Sydney Angels and what you do. They are a great opportunity to get some funds into your business. What I'm going to take you through now is how to deliver an engaging pitch. So you might have the best idea in the world, but if you're not able to pitch it in a really strong, succinct way, it's going to be difficult to get people's attention. So I'm going to run you through a few tips on that. A couple of things about me before we start. I went to the University of New South Wales. That's back in 1990 something. I graduated with a Bachelor of Economics and a Masters of Marketing. That was my boyfriend at the time. I think he would die if he knew that I was showing this publicly. At the moment, I run the UNSW Founders 10X Accelerator program, and we've just completed our, I've just run my 4th cohort, so I've just completed our 6th cohort. So we run 2 accelerator programs. I run at 10X, which is the industry agnostic teams, and we've got another program manager that runs Health 10X that we run in partnership with the George Institute for Global Health. As part of the Founders Program, we support UNSW students, staff and alumni on their entrepreneurial journey. We've got something for everybody. We've got something for people that have got an idea all the way through up to investing in it through 10X and beyond into scaling as well. I'm also a tutor at University of New South Wales Business School, and I teach collaboration and innovation in business. I've got identical twin girls who attend the University of New South Wales. There's a theme running through here. I'm also a surf lifesaver at Manly Beach, one of the best beaches in Sydney, one of the best, because I know Bondi's pretty good as well. And I also appeared on the first season of Shark Tank, and that was kind of my first understanding of what pitching was all about. I didn't get an investment, but for all the right reasons. And Greg touched on some of those before. So what I'm going to cover today are 3 key elements to a cracking pitch. We're going to cover off the story or content, the slides, and the delivery. But before we do that, one way that you can create a really engaging pitch whenever you speak to any investors is simply just give them cake. Everybody loves cake, don't they? So if you present with confidence, authenticity, knowledge, and enthusiasm, you're bound to get them to sit up and listen to what you are actually saying. So if that's the only thing that you remember from my presentation today, just remember cake. Be confident, be authentic, know your stuff, and be super enthusiastic. And that's something that Greg touched on earlier. So when it comes to pitching, there are 3 key elements: the story, your content, the slides that you use, and your actual delivery. And this is what I call the pitch genius zone, is when your story is congruent and matches your slides and is congruent to your delivery. That is the zone that you're absolutely aiming for. And that is the most engaging point that you will be able to have. You'll get people to sit up and listen and remember you. So in terms of the story, here's a couple of tips here, is to tell a story. Everybody listens and engages with a story. It's how we communicate as humans. Have a very logical flow to your story. Practice different story ideas with people and see what resonates and what lands with people. Have the essentials only in it. So cut out the guff. Most of your pitches are going to be, could be a 2-minute pitch, a 3-minute pitch, a 5-minute pitch, maybe a 7-minute pitch. That's a very short period of time for you to actually deliver your entire business. Use everyday language. So get rid of that jargon. And Greg mentioned that before, that when you're pitching to people, they don't know the ins and outs of your industry. So get rid of the jargon and just speak like a human. Keep it simple and add a personal touch where you're comfortable. And the picture I've got on the screen is of Peter. And Peter went through the University of New South Wales Health 10X Cohort 2. And he had a business called Cardio Bionic. And the problem that he was addressing is that thousands of people die every year waiting for a heart transplant. There just aren't enough hearts out there. And he came across this problem because that's a picture of him with his uncle. His uncle needed a heart transplant. He went into hospital because of his age. He was effectively told to go home. There's nothing more that we can do for you. So Peter's device is an external pump that you can keep your heart pumping and live a very normal life while potentially waiting for a heart transplant. And that's how he opened his presentation. So he told a very, very personal story. So wherever you're comfortable, add your personal story. And you've got to remember there's lots of people that are pitching very similar businesses to you, but no one can pitch your exact story. And that's what's going to land and resonate. Here's a couple of tips for creating your story. Get lots of sticky notes. In fact, get about 10 notes and write the key point on each sticky note. And these sticky notes will form the basis of your slide deck. So just on a sticky note, so it's a really small piece of paper, it's going to force you to be really succinct. So what's the problem? And in Peter's case, the problem was there's not enough hearts in the world to help people with a heart transplant. Solution is a device that keeps the heart pumping. Opportunity, there's X amount of people that's costing X amount to the health systems a year. So use sticky notes. They'll help you to be super concise. When it comes to your slides, Greg touched on these, there's probably about 10 key points that you're going to pop on those slides. The problem you're solving, what your solution is, the size of the opportunity, who else is doing it and how are you different, what's your actual product, some of the financials in there, what's your go-to-market strategy, what traction have you got, who's the team to make this happen? And this is super important early stage. You may not have much traction in your actual business, but the team that's come together may have had some traction in other areas as well that makes it intriguing for investors. And have an ask when you're presenting. A couple of slide tips. Now, a lot of the pitches that you're going to be doing are going to be in the online space. Many, many years ago, actually, it wasn't many years ago, was it, Greg? It was probably about 18 months ago whenever you were pitching, investors actually wanted to meet you in person, get to know the person, read your body language. It's actually quite acceptable these days to have meetings with investors via Zoom. In fact, we had no choice up until about 10 days ago to do that. So when you're using slides in the online environment, your slides actually do the heavy lifting. When you're presenting in person, it's you, the person, that's doing the heavy lifting. So just remember that flip that's actually happening. Have a look at the size of my slides here compared to the size of me. So the slides are doing a lot more work in the online environment. Have one topic per slide. Have minimum font size of about 24. This is actually 30 that I'm using. However, in the online space, you can have a slightly smaller font size. The reason why you have a bigger font size in a public space or when you're presenting on stage is not everybody can read anything from the back seats. However, everybody's in the same boat here when we're looking on our computer screens. Still use minimal text as well. Try and avoid having super busy slides. And the idea is to kind of talk to your slides. And you still do most of the talking. Use high quality images, use a consistent look and feel, reflecting your brand. That'll help you to come across as being more confident as well. Be as visual as possible and always check your presentation before you present. Couple of slide hacks. Canva is absolutely awesome to be able to present your slides. Also, if you're using PowerPoint, there's a little thing called Design Ideas, and that will give you some really good formatting for your slides. And there's plenty of stuff that you can find on YouTube about how to create nice slides. In terms of the delivery, there are 3 areas when it comes to the delivery. You've got the words that you're using, your actual voice, really powerful tool, and the non-verbal communication. So words, as mentioned before, use your words, the language that you use, and that will help you to come across as being more authentic. Remember the A in the cake, be authentic. Use emotive words where possible. So Pete, when he presented Cardio Bion, it was definitely quite emotive in the language that he was using to talk about at the market and talk about his uncle. Mentioned earlier, avoid jargon as well. Hopefully I haven't used too much jargon in this presentation. Just keep it everyday language, and then your points are going to land with everybody. I often get, I work with some super smart founders, and they're always worried about what they call it is dumbing it down. And I say it's not about dumbing it down at all. I'm super smart. We work with researchers and PhD students and lawyers. It's not about dumbing it down. It's about effective, engaging communication. So when you do get to speak with an investor that might be an expert in cryptocurrency, for example, then you can start dropping in that jargon and having that conversation around that. But when you're not too sure, just use everyday language. Your voice. Your voice is the most powerful tool that you've got when it comes to presenting. So think about the energy that you're using and think about the emphasis that you have at particular points of your presentation. Also, think about your pitch inflection. So think about your upward inflection can often means that you can come across as being uncertain. Remember the C in the cake, wanting to be really confident. So when you have a downward inflection, it's not only making a point, but it's also helping you to be more confident. If you think about, and hopefully this will happen really soon, is when we can travel on a plane. So you jump on a plane and the captain says, "Welcome aboard, ladies and gentlemen. This is Captain Melissa Pye. We are currently travelling from Sydney to Melbourne on flight QF 419. We're expecting very smooth flying conditions today, so we invite you to sit back, relax, and enjoy the trip." Very smooth voice that's used, and that's all about helping you to be confident on a plane. You're sitting in a tin can 36,000 feet above Earth, so his or her job is to help you feel confident. So it's a very smooth voice and a lot of downward inflection. You've also got the register that you can use, and you can go upwards and downwards, a high and low register that will help to make it more engaging. You can also think about the rhythm that you're using and the pace. So sometimes if you really want to get a story going and perhaps get their interest, and it was really exciting as we ran down the whatever, it's part of your story, you can think about the pace that you use. Another tool that you've got is the volume. And sometimes when you speak really quietly, you can really make a strong point because people will sit up and listen to what you're saying. And one of my other favorite things when you're presenting, a really, really cool technique just to get people's attention, is the power of the pause. So just remember some of those tools in your toolkit to be able to use to keep it an engaging conversation that you're having. The final one I want to talk about is non-verbal communication. So this is your body language, your facial expressions, your tone of voice, your gestures, your eye contact, your posture. And non-verbal counts for 60 to 80% of your communication. And it's harder to consciously control than your words. So when we're in the online environment, you can't see my feet. The really key part is your face when you're presenting. It's your eyes and your eye contact, your smile, and where you can, and where you do use your hands like I do, get to use your hands as well to create those gestures and also to create that human engagement as well. So think about your non-verbal communication. Preparation is absolutely key to presenting. So know your numbers, really key, and Greg touched on this before. Know your numbers, know your metrics. How many users have you got? How many customers do you have? What's your web traffic? How many downloads? How many signups? What's your revenue? What's the size of the market? Who are the other key players in the market? Also, do your research on who you're pitching to. What are their typical investments? What industry do the investors typically invest in? Is it industry agnostic? Is it health tech? Is it food tech? Are they mainly B2B, B2C, business to government? Do they invest in hardware, invest in software? So do your research so you really understand who you're pitching to. Have an understanding of the check size, and Greg shared the check size for Sydney Angels as well, and understand the decision-making time frame. And Sydney Angels does a cracker job, or Greg used to do a cracker job of outlining all of this stuff that's often a mystery. Some websites, some of the investments, some of the VCs will do a good job of this, but really do your research before you start speaking to them. Don't waste your time. Your time as a founder is super, it's super in short demand, super short, and don't waste anybody else's time as well. Tips for video delivery. I think I mentioned this before. That is such a bad picture of me. I'm actually going to change that. Try to look at the camera if you can, and not at the people on the screen, and not at yourself. A lot of people look at themselves and make sure that they're looking okay and presenting okay. So if you can, try to remember to look at the camera. If you can, position the camera in the middle of your forehead and position yourself in the middle of the screen. Think about the lighting that you've got on you. I've used front lighting. I've got front lighting. I'm actually standing by a window and grabbing that front lighting. When I present at night, I've actually got one of those round lights that I have and present with that. You don't want to be too dark when you're presenting, kind of darkness, kind of a bit of mystery kind of there. You actually want to be as present as possible. Think about your sound and test your sound and test the microphones that you're using. We had somebody pitch once that had their AirPods in that had an earring, and whenever she laughed, it went click, 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 and it took us a while to figure that out. So test your sound. Think about whether you're more comfortable standing or whether you're more comfortable sitting when you're presenting. I stand when I present. I find that I have more energy when I'm standing, but work out what's right for you. What's in your background? Is it a virtual background? Is it a messy kitchen? Have you got kids, pets running past? So have a think about what's in your background as well. Try and keep it as professional as possible. But since COVID, I think we recognise that we're all humans. We are working from home and we've got a lot going on as well. If you can memorise what you're presenting, definitely rehearse with Zoom. Just record yourself presenting, go back and have a look at it and tweak where you need to. Also these days, and this comes back to that authenticity piece of the cake, things these days are more conversational as well, particularly when we are in the online environment. So try not to kind of pitch really hard, try to keep it as conversational as possible. How to manage nerves. Nerves are great. It shows that you actually care, and it's your body dealing with what you see as potentially a life-threatening situation. Rehearse always helps with that. Breathe and ground yourself prior to a pitch, but it's actually good to be nervous. Things to avoid. Bamboozling people with jargon. You've heard it from Greg, you've heard it from me, you've heard it again. Just avoid jargon wherever possible. The last thing you want is somebody walking away from your presentation going, I've really got absolutely no idea what they do. Avoid boring them to sleep as you can. This will make sure that people are interested in your presentation. Dig into your toolbox of using your voice, so make sure that your slides are engaging. Make sure that you use great visuals on your slides and vary your voice. Stick to your timing. So if you've only got 5 minutes or 7 minutes to pitch, make sure that you stick to your timing. That shows that you know how to manage time and that you are respectful of other people's time as well. And that's all that I wanted to share with you today. So a couple of tips on how to create an engaging conversation. Remember, give them a piece of cake. Have the confidence when you are presenting. Have that authenticity. Have that knowledge. Know what you're presenting. Know who you're presenting to as well. Know what they're looking for as well, and keep your energy high as well. So enjoy serving that piece of cake next time with an investor. Hey, any questions from Greg or myself? Feel free to unmute yourself if you'd like. Any questions in the chat? Leanne. Northern Beaches, UNSW alumni. Nice to meet you. Any questions, any thoughts? Anything anybody would like to add to what they've heard? Any tips you'd like to share?
Some interesting background noise.
That's me, isn't it? Yeah. Got somebody next door pulling up the tiles today.
Okay, we've got a good number of founders that are looking for raise. Oh, here we go. Most memorable pictures. Have you got any that come to mind, Melissa? I think.
Yeah, you got. Yeah, but we had one of our cohorts. We had a team of actually some of them are still studying a business called Yellow Box, and Yellow Box were creating lockers that you can use using your smartphone, and they were putting them in locations like in nightclubs. Actually, they got to set them up in Coogee Beach. They won the contract for the State Library, and they've actually now gone global. And it was a really memorable presentation. It was a presentation for a 10X pitch night. So we're at a big theatre, 300 people in the theatre, and they pitched. So they actually had their product on stage. And they did a demo of how it worked, and they rehearsed so many times. So right on cue, the locker opened, which was fantastic. They were a bit nervous that wasn't going to happen. But what they did is we built the pitch in line with the audience. So Vanessa, who's one of the co-founders, got up and said, first thing she said was, "Hey, did anybody? Everyone's come straight from work. Did anybody lug with them their gym gear or a briefcase or?" Briefcase is on fashion, a backpack or anything with them here tonight. And you could see a few people kind of nodded. And then she went on to say, wouldn't it have been great if there was somewhere convenient for you to actually store that so you could lug it round? And then somebody was in the audience called Kristen, and then she referred to Kristen. She's come here tonight with her gym gear. And then Kristen was kind of fed through the story as well. But it was a really memorable presentation because it was contextual, and she was talking about a real person as well. So that was a really memorable presentation for me. I can see Shahay nodding because Shahay was in the audience for that one as well. I think
for me, I believe people run businesses. So I'm actually looking a lot at the founder. And one of the things that we've recently introduced, we're just trialing at the moment, is a system. If you guys would like to look at it, it's a useful system. It's called F4S, Fingerprint for Success. And we like to encourage our founders in syndicates to go through it. So I've got a debrief tomorrow with a founder. We're doing DD on for their company. There's 3 founders. And one of the reasons why we focused on this is because, and the statistics are different, so I don't want to scare anybody. The statistics show that the investments that Sydney Angels have made are more positive or a higher rate of success when you've got a team of founders as opposed to a single founder in Australia. Now, I will definitely balance that off. In America, it's the opposite result. For some reason, I was told this the other day by someone. So I think it's just an Australian thing. And so I look at the founders as a team, because you can put a team together in Fingerprint for Success. They do an assessment, and it's not personality. This is the new age now. This isn't a Myers-Briggs. This isn't going to put you in a box. This is a coaching tool to help you understand your strengths and your blind spots. That's all it is. Everybody sees everybody else's blind spots. They just don't see their own. So for me, I think in terms of memorable presentations, it's about the founder and about them being some of the things that Melissa talked about, integrity and authenticity, and I think a little bit of knowledge and charm kind of go in there when you're presenting, and you're presenting something that you've probably put a lot of life energy into. It comes through in your presentation and who you are as a person. And so the most memorable one for me was actually not so much for the presentation, but more for who the person was AJ Singh from Easy Collect. I found him very engaging, really, really open. He didn't come and try and hide any details. When we did the syndicate process, he approached it as not being around a table of people who were trying to get something from him or trying to put him in a corner or trying to catch him out or anything like that. He saw everybody as his teacher. He sees the world as his teacher. And so he goes through this humility that's really, really nice. And that came through in his presentation. Now, I ended up working for AJ for 12 months as well. I thoroughly enjoyed my time and I'd work for him again. And that was always it's always a great question, when an interview question, when you've left an organization, if you had the opportunity, would you work for them again? And so that for me, I think is probably the key thing. That's why it was memorable. There's two, that one and one other one. I won't go into it because I see there's more questions coming in. What have we got here? Great to have you here. Repost question. Curious about what's other video. So far, because of our screening process, we haven't had what I would call a definite no. Ours fall into two categories when they get to the presentation stage. Category one is, would you like to find out more information about this? Category two is, and you either answer yes or no to that. So you either want to find more or you don't. And it comes down to each investor's personal criteria, which is different. Every investor is different. That's one thing I can tell you. There's a few common denominators, but some have knowledge in different industries to others. So it's very difficult unless you just do something where you really fall on your face. And very few people do, because by the time they come to us and get through to the members meeting, there's been a high degree of screening that's gone on. So the idea's kind of been around the mill a little bit by the time it gets, there's only, maybe up to a maximum of an 8-week process if they put their application in the very beginning for when they're doing their presentation at the members meeting. But they've probably done lots of other pitches since then. They've had coaching and mentoring. So we don't often get a flat out, that presentation was rubbish. It doesn't really happen. We get everything from not so good through to good. And we try and coach and help people and mentor them where we can. But very rarely do we get that. Usually they're filtered out in the application process, because remember, we get 40 that just come to us on 2 pages, and only 6 of those each cycle go through to actually presenting. So there's been a degree of filtering at that stage. Usually it's the other way around. Usually I'm pleasantly surprised. I get something on paper that looks rubbish and they present, and it's a very, very different story. I go, wow, this is a great business. They didn't express it very well on paper. But don't often get too many where it looks great on paper and then they present, we go, oh, that was actually rubbish. It's usually not the case. Yeah. Melissa, do you have anything on that?
No, I was just looking at another question.
Go ahead, please.
No, it was Leanne has asked, because of the clicking earrings, prompted her to think about what to wear for a pitch and what's appropriate, casual, corporate, branded. Do we have any advice? I have a point of view. We get people pitching to us all the time to get into the program. And Greg, I'm sure you have a point of view as well. My point of view is whatever you're comfortable in. And I don't think you can actually go wrong with a branded t-shirt, to be honest. It's startup land. If you don't wear suits, don't put on a suit, whatever you do. I think a branded t-shirt is more than adequate. Greg, what have people pitched in when they've come and seen you?
Everything from suits to jeans and a t-shirt. And, again, I completely agree with whatever you're comfortable in. The people in the audience won't be wearing the same as you, but hey, you're different. You're not an investor. You're an entrepreneur. Now, some of these guys were entrepreneurs. Now they're investors. And, they choose to be comfortable in whatever they're comfortable in. But I wouldn't get you to change what you're dressed in. We're not buying what you're dressed in.
Greg, you're usually in jeans and a t-shirt yourself, aren't you?
Often I am. I like to get into that kind of, particularly when I was working with EasyCollect, I always wore the EasyCollect t-shirt, because it's that, and Melissa touched on it, it's part of that tribe thing as well. When you're in this tribe, you want to say, hey, this is our tribe. This is what we stand for. This is what we believe, And Simon Sinek says something very important, and that is people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. So how you're dressed has nothing to do with that. Yeah, absolutely. On the spiritual one, I'll just quickly touch on that. I myself have had a sort of a deep spiritual experience over the last 10 years. And if it's something in that, yeah, but you've got to remember at the same time, and this is one of the, I think one of the pitfalls of spirituality is that spirituality has a great difficulty monetizing spirituality. It's one of the difficulties of it. So if you have that persona, sure, bring it. But at the same time, make sure you show your business model around whatever your product is, you know, because you're bringing yourself, you know. If that's who you are, then bring that, because that's the most important thing. Don't bring what you think the audience wants to see, because most of the time when you guess, you're not right. What else do we have here? I think we're kind of out of questions there. I think we're probably out of time as well. Yeah, we're right on time there. Okay, well, this has been fantastic, guys. Thank you very much for your questions, your participation. I wish you, all the best with whatever venture. I highly encourage you to participate in putting a application into the Angels. One thing I will say quickly is, and usually founders have this in spades, just because you get a no this week doesn't mean you can't apply again next cycle, the one after that, the one after that. We've had some people get investment after applying 4 or 5 times. The only thing I would say is just simply when you reapply, show that there's been a change in your business. If you applied and you got a no, reapply with updated information. Really, really key. Melissa, some final words from you.
No final words from me, apart from thank you very much for everybody for coming along. Hope you found that useful. Sydney Angels is doing a great job with what they're doing. If you want to find out anything more about UNSW Founders Program, just hit me up on LinkedIn. Our next 10X program runs next year, but it's never too early to get started. We've got all sorts of other ways that we can support you between now and then for all UNSW student, staff and alumni. Really appreciate you hanging out with us on Tuesday afternoon.
Terrific. Thanks, guys. And yeah, we get some great cohorts come from UNSW that come through the Angels as well. So please look us both up. Thank you, folks. Take it easy.
Thanks, everyone.
Cheers.